shut up a minute. What's this for? Give me the word in. Order! Order! I say to the honourable gentleman, give me this. I will not tolerate such behaviour. If you want to go out now, but if you stand again, I will order you out. Make your mind up. Either shut up and get out.
Free school matters on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, in relation to welfare, what we delivered last night was a bill which ends mandatory reassessment of those with severe disabilities. That is the right thing to do. It rebalances universal credit. That is long overdue, and it sets out a pathway to reform of PIP. Mr. Speaker, it's consistent with the principles I set out throughout. If you can work, you should work. If you need help into work, the state should provide the help. The system that they broke doesn't do so. And if you can't work...
I think there's one or two I can spot immediately. Usual voices, same names, please. It's too early to leave the chamber. Prime Minister.
And Mr. Speaker, if you can't work, you must be supported and protected. The reformed welfare system that we're putting in place will be better for individuals, better for the taxpayer and better for the economy.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think...
A Prime Minister walks into Parliament to defend his own welfare bill and can't tell you how much it saves, how many people it gets into work, or whether your taxes are going up to cover the mess. That happened this week. And the person who exposed every single gap, line by line, number by number, was the leader of the opposition. And she did it without raising her voice once. At Prime Minister's questions, Kemi Badenoch opened with what sounded like a simple request. Prime Minister, how much does your welfare bill actually save? That's not a trick question. That's the bare minimum voters deserve to know about legislation that affects millions of people's lives. Keir Starmer's response? A defence of the bill's principles. Talk of supporting those who can't work. Words about reform pathways. Everything except a number. Because here's what happened the night before, and this is the part that should genuinely alarm anyone paying attention. The government introduced a welfare reform bill. Labour's own backbenchers revolted. Clause 5, a core savings mechanism, was stripped out mid-debate. The bill, designed to reduce welfare spending, was amended in real time to increase it. The Prime Minister arrived at the dispatch box the next morning to defend a policy his own MPs had gutted the previous evening. And he had no answers ready. Here's the number that stops the room. Sickness and incapacity benefits are now on course to cost £100 billion. That's not a projection from a think tank hostile to Labour. That's the trajectory, and the government's own legislative vehicle to control that figure has now been hollowed out. Badenoch made the constitutional point with absolute precision. You cannot reduce a spending bill you've already been forced to compromise. The amendment has been signed. The rebellion has been absorbed. The savings are gone. And then she asked the question that landed hardest: can the Prime Minister rule out tax rises in the autumn budget? He could not. He said what Prime Ministers always say, that no budget is written from the dispatch box. That's technically true. But in the context of a welfare bill that has already collapsed its own savings targets, not ruling out tax rises tells the country exactly what it needs to know. Someone is going to pay for this. And it won't be the people in that chamber. Badenoch's approach was deliberate and disciplined. She didn't lead with ideology. She led with numbers, because numbers are harder to deflect than politics. Starmer's default response to Conservative pressure is well established. They broke it. We're fixing it. The NHS, the economy, welfare, the line is consistent. And on a historical level, it's not entirely without foundation. But that defence only works when you're cleaning up someone else's mess. It falls apart the moment your own legislation becomes the story. This week, the government's own backbenchers became the opposition, and no amount of pointing backwards changes that. The damage isn't just political, it's strategic. Starmer wanted welfare reform to be proof of fiscal seriousness. Instead, it has become evidence of internal fragility. The question Badenoch posed, who is actually running this government, is one that Labour MPs themselves are now asking in private. Every working person watching this should understand what is at stake. Unemployment has risen every single month since Labour took office. The welfare bill meant to address that has been neutered. The Chancellor has not ruled out autumn tax rises, and a Prime Minister who promised difficult decisions has on this occasion been unable to deliver them through his own parliamentary party. That is not a bad week, that is a structural problem. Governments lose authority in different ways. Sometimes it's a scandal, sometimes it's an economic shock. Sometimes it's the moment the chamber realises that the person at the dispatch box doesn't have the answers and doesn't control the votes. This week, it might have been all three.